Good afternoon and welcome to the Hawaii State Senate. We are here for this Monday, April 4th, 1 p.m. a joint legislative informational briefing between the Senate Committee on Health and our friends from the House Committee on Health, Human Services, and Homelessness. I'm Jarrett Kyoho-Kalole, Chair of the Senate Health Committee. I'm joined in the room right now by my Vice Chair, Senator Roz Baker. Co-Chair, would you like to introduce your members?
Thank you, Chair. Representative Yamane, Chair of the Health, Human Services, Homeless. I also have members, Representative Capella and Ward present. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're here featuring the State Department of Accounting and General Services and the Department of Health for an update on the two items. The first being the status of the new Hawaii State Hospital psychiatric facility. So I'm happy to turn it over to the Department of Health.
Yeah. Good afternoon, Chairs Kyoho-Kalole and Yamane and members of the committees. Thank you. My name is Marion Tsujim, the Deputy Director for Behavioral Health at the Department of Health. And we are pleased to provide you all with this update on the state hospital. I think that we've all been very anxious about getting the facility open and running. So thank you for your patience in waiting for us to get things ready. I think that at all times we've always considered patient as well as staff safety foremost, and that has resulted in some delays, but we'd like to be able to share some of that information with you today. With my team here, I have Dr. Amy Curtis, who is in charge of adult mental health. Ron Heidelberg, Dr. Heidelberg is the hospital administrator, and Dr. Michael Champion, who is our mental health medical director. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to the two gentlemen to my left.
Got one more.
Who? Oh, I'm sorry, and he doesn't belong to us. Oh, he's an outcast. That's terrible. I'm sorry. Who's gonna introduce himself?
Hi, I'm Eric Nishimoto. I'm with DAGS Public Works on behalf of the Comptroller, and I'll be part of the presentation.
Thank
Sorry
you.
about that.
I just see the administration, Department of State Administration. So
Thank you.
please go ahead.
It's our partnership here.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Michael Champion, Medical Director for the Adult Mental Health Division.
Just get it a little bit more in front of you.
Okay.
You can just turn it like that. You don't have to move.
Okay, thank you. I'm Dr. Michael Champion, Medical Director for the Adult Mental Health Division. And today we have put together a PowerPoint presentation for you that we'll be walking through as a team. And just in terms of housekeeping, I'll lead off on the second slide, slide number 2. Next slide, please. Thank you. This gives us an opportunity to talk a little bit about the new patient facility being a secure forensic psychiatric hospital and how that differs from other secure settings with people who are justice involved. And so what you'll see here on the left is some description about a forensic psychiatric facility as compared to a correctional facility, which you'll see on the right. So both facilities are designed to have a security context to maintain security for the staff and the patients or inmates or detainees who are in those environments. For a forensic psychiatric facility, the individuals who are there are ordered by the court, criminal court, and to get mandated therapy and treatment and services related to their justice involvement. It can be if somebody's found unfit to proceed, to trial, and through their process, their legal process, they're ordered to the hospital to receive services to restore their fitness so that they can continue the adjudication. Other individuals are committed by the courts on an acquit or commit, or in other jurisdictions called a not guilty by reason of insanity finding. Other individuals come to a forensic hospital when they've been released after acquit and commit on conditional release into the community and may have violated their conditions of release or clinically have become unstable and are sent back to the hospital to address those needs so that they can go back out to the community at some particular point. Now, in general, when somebody is sent into a forensic psychiatric facility, unlike a prison or jail setting, it can be for an indeterminate period of time. Compared to a fixed sentence or a detention period if somebody's in jail or prison. The last comment I'll make is that historically here in Hawaii, a very large proportion or percentage of individuals who are at Hawaii State Hospital have come on criminal court commitments. And in recent years, it's almost been 100% of the individuals sent to Hawaii State Hospital been sent by the criminal courts. There's a handful of civil committed individuals who are there from time to time, and most of the time it's when somebody's converted over from their criminal court commitment into a civil commitment. For instance, if their period of time being held for restoration of fitness is timed out, if there are public safety issues or personal safety issues, the hospital can seek a civil commitment, and people are retained at the hospital under that status. I would just say two more things before I turn it over to Dr. Heidelberg, is that other states are facing the same predicament that we are. There is a very high percentage of criminal court commitments or forensic patients in state hospital settings all over the country. There are a handful of other states that are near 100%, bubbling 70, 80, 90, 100%. Most states in the country are at least over 50%. And there are good trends that are happening in the country right now to work on decriminalizing mental illness and create diversion programs so that people can off-ramp before they get in the justice system and go down this pathway. So what we're seeing is that the numbers are slowly going down. Thank you. And I'll turn it over to Dr. Heidelberg for slide 3.
Okay, chairs, members of the committee. My name is Dr. Ron Heidelberg, Administrator of Hawaii State Hospital. Would like to go over a few slides to talk about the campus, HSH campus. So HSH campus comprised of 3 low security and 2 medium security. So if you look to your top left, we have Goonsburg, and that is one of our low security, as well as Unit E and I, and those are the blue X's at the bottom. And if you look in the middle, we do have Central Campus, which is Unit Foxtrot and H Hotel. On the next slide, please. So with the existing campus, we'd had to do some physical modifications, which is putting up galvanized type of fencing around the units. We've reinforced the windows with plexiglass, as well as wire meshings. And we're just doing this to increase our security of our existing campus. Next slide, please. All new patients will be admitted to the new patient facility. And that is once they're assessed, and they'll be moved on to a different location on campus. Next slide, please. So based on the treatment and security needs of the patient, once we have an assessment of them, they'll be assigned to housing accordingly. Next slide. So basically, the objective is to have a continuum of care, not just one size fit all. We'll have the corresponding type of security for the patients that need to be there. And we'll have that flexibility whether patients are court ordered or civilly committed. Next slide, please. And this is a very exciting facility. It's the first of its kind. It is really, we just want to say thanks a lot to the legislature to giving the $160 million to get this project going, because this project basically balances the therapeuticness and a healing environment that people need, as well as we have a secure facility for folks that are that need secure forensic psychiatric care. It does combine the inpatient psychiatric hospital with security. It's something that we really didn't have. And so this unique design is unique from anywhere in the nation. Because this is a design built, our staff sat down with the designers and they had their input into how this building would be built. So it's really highly specialized, and the expertise and training and the design really is really great. So there is some changes in the operational structure as well as procedures and the effect of the building. And if you look to your left, those pictures come from the art classes. And then you look at the bottom, it is really secure. The beds are bolted to the floor, and they're really a soft type of furniture in your top right-hand side. So it's really a nice campus. Next slide, please. So next, I just want to just take a historical look at timelines. In 1947, Goddard Building was built. So Goddard is to your extreme right up top. And in 1955, Greensburg Building, which is still in existence right now, is to your left. In 1992, the lower campus, which is a central campus, was built. And those are more cottage style. And you'll see that in the middle. We did put some galvanized fencing around it because that's our admissions unit. And then in 2016, the legislature appropriated the funding for the new patient facility. We had a groundbreaking in 2018. And then in 2022, we are slated to occupy the new patient facility. Thank you, and I'll pass it on to Dr. Champion.
Yes, next slide, please. So what I'd like to emphasize is going back to some comments that I made earlier about the trends in other states, as well as here in Hawaii, being such a high percentage of individuals in state hospitals that are justice involved and have a forensic status. I think this is really good news. We're really making positive progress. If you could just go back to the previous slide, please. Thank you. We're making very good progress on something that is going to make a huge impact here in our community. What I'd like to share with you is that I've been working in facilities in the public sector since the mid-'80s. Jails, prisons, forensic hospitals, forensic treatment centers that are located in correctional settings, that are located in a state hospital setting. And what I can say is the biggest challenge from my perspective is balancing the security needs, public safety, as well as the safety of the staff and the patients who are together in an environment, in a facility, balancing that with creating an environment that is facilitating the recovery that individuals need in a therapeutic, humane environment to begin a long road to being rehabilitated and recovering from their mental illness, substance use disorders, and returning to the community successfully. And so those pictures that were on the slide previously, I think, are a quick representation of that balancing act and what we see in this beautiful facility, that there is a need to have an environment where things are safe, like, for instance, heavy chairs bolted to the ground, more institutional looking beds and furnitures. But the difference is the environment is very light infused. There's views to the environment outside, the treatment mall. If you stand in it and look towards the mountains, you see a continuum. And I can tell you from having spent years in facilities behind the bars, one of the biggest psychological impacts is this feeling of being enclosed. Well, this facility is very different and was designed in such a way that there is a feeling of openness with the environment and nature around. So to operationalize that kind of new facility. That's the balance that we need to really attend to. And there are four major areas that we need to work on to be able to operationalize a place like this. One is to develop an operating plan and the policies and procedures that support that operating plan. The other is recruiting staff, to staff it up and train the staff appropriately for this unique environment. You also have to go through the process of getting certification and licensure of the facility. And then, of course, having a consultation with the union so that everybody's on the same page and there's a process of getting on the same page. So it would be nice to be able to go fully live and just getting the keys in hand, but there's a lot that needs to be done before we transfer patients over. And on the next slide, I'll show you the good news, in my opinion, and our opinion of the progress that we've made. Thank you. So with respect to the operating plan, we went through a process of carefully looking at the right balance, as I've already spoken to, and developing an operating plan and the move-in plan, which was created in January of 2022. With respect to staffing, recruitment has been ongoing. I think some of the challenges is that during COVID, what we're seeing in many different industries, as well as healthcare, where people are leaving the workplace. So at the same time, we're trying to recruit and staff up, we're losing folks. And COVID has really made that quite a challenge in this last 2-year period of time, but we are making progress. Training for those of our employees who are affiliated with the HTH are underway at this particular time. And for our employees affiliated with UPW, that training is pending at this time. Certification and licensure is essential, and we received a certificate of occupancy in February of 2021. That certificate required that it needed inspection and approval by the Honolulu Fire Department, and we received licensure from OCA within DOH in January 27th, 2022. So we're over that hurdle and moving forward with good progress. In terms of union consultation, our first set of policies and procedures was provided to both HCEA and UPW in November of 2021, and a full consultation packet was provided to both in January of 2022. So just to sum that up, from my perspective, our perspective, there's been a lot to do, but we're making excellent progress along the way. We're almost there. Okay, the next slide, please. And now I'll turn over to my good colleague from DAGS.
Good afternoon, chairs, vice chairs, members of the committee. Eric Nishimoto again from DAGS Public Works, representing the comptroller. Today, I just want to highlight what is going on with the project in terms of construction. There's a lot of warranty work and corrective work that we're doing. The facility, like mentioned in the earlier slide, was accepted on time in 2021, February of 2021. A lot of the work you're seeing that has come out in the media, unfortunately, it's part of the process of, finding defects or things that are not working as expected. And that is why we have warranties and guarantees in a construction contract. In this case, a design build contract. But once they're identified, in our contract, our design builder has been very responsive, working with us and DOH, and we've been all working together to try and get this thing, corrected where there are defects, and there are some changes, after having gone through the project and developing the operational plan with the hospital, helping them along. There are some areas that needed some changes. So like Dr. Champion and Dr. Heidelberg mentioned, and everybody, I think the primary thing here is for the safety of the patients and the staff. So very important for many years to come. There are some defects and what that we call latent. Sometimes they're very hard to find during inspections until you actually use it. So these things come up and we're addressing it. Drainage of the showers, I think, is one issue that became very evident. It wasn't, the hospital still hasn't been utilized, but being that, a shower or two was turned on and it was not draining properly. And so we went and checked all of the showers. The contractor did their own assessment. We did our own assessment and we gave our instructions on what they needed to do to correct the defect. Just to highlight that, there's 84 showers in this facility. A lot of them have ponding, but there are about 3 or 4 of them that actually drained in the wrong direction. And those are the ones that I think stood out and really brought attention to us to check every single one. But even the ones that are marginally, draining, we're having the contractor correct that. So, I think our contractor has been, I keep saying contractor, but they're the design builder, has been very responsive. And they're working quickly to correct that. Next slide. And this is maybe perhaps not a good picture, but it's hard to catch, what is happening. I think you can barely see the water in that photo, but it's the darker covered area. Yeah, there was a video. I'm not sure what happened to it. It's just a photo. Anyway, that video showed, we took videos and, how the thing, if you leave the shower on for a prolonged period, you're gonna see that it ponds and it doesn't drain fast enough or it's not slopey enough. So anyway, like I said, the contractor is taking corrective action. Next slide. Another issue that came up in the media and I think brought to your attention is these door hardware. This is just typical samples of the door hardware, the handles. On the far left is your normal hardware that you see on, like this conference room, which is not ligature proof. The one next to it is anti-ligature, where patients will have very difficult, if not impossible, time hanging themselves on that. Above that is, to the further right is a typical door closer, which you see in this conference room too. And on the far right is an anti-ligature door closer. As you can see, it still has a place where you can hang, but it minimizes that opportunity given the way when it's closed, it's fully, it's hidden. Whereas the other one, like this door in the back of you or in front of you, you can see that even in its closed position, you can hang yourself. So these were changes that are being made, and it became very evident as the hospital walked through and started realizing how it would operate the facility. Initially, it was designed where supervised areas would be anti-ligature and non-supervised areas did not have to be. That was our contract. However, after, when it's built, we realize certain things operationally is not ideal. So at the request of the hospital, we issued a change to change those out. Next slide, please. This slide here, fire safety and water supply, that also was came out in the media. I just want to make one point that this is not holding back the opening of the new patient facility. There's some bullet points here, but basically our facility does meet the fire code. It was approved by the City and County of Honolulu and the fire, which includes the fire department, of course. And regarding the existing system, they do have a existing water storage tank that provides additional water flow, storage, and pressure, in addition to the water system, county water supply system. And it provides additional coverage for fire protection, as well as in the event we would lose water supply with water. It could be used for potable drinking water too. So what happened in this project is we realized that, you know, maybe the campus needed some improvement, and we recommended to the Department of Health that maybe they should upgrade the system to, there's a standard that is a very high standard. And it's not that the facility isn't compliant with anything or is not safe for occupancy. It's just an improvement to reach that very high standard, which is like 4,000 GPM for 3 hours, I believe. And that's a very high standard to meet. Our recommendations included some of those improvements that could try and achieve those standards. And if met, it would help the hospital, especially for patients with low mobility, and basically just overall fire safety. The lower campus is it's called, I guess, Central Campus, or the whole campus as a whole. It does conform to whatever it was at the time when we built the facility. So it's not like this project created a problem for the rest of the campus. It still remains operational, and it's safe to occupy. It's just improving the fire safety capacity. That is, I think, critical, as mentioned, for the low mobility patients. And I think that's all for my slides.
Okay, yes, next, that's perfect, thank you. So this slide is a projected timeline for occupancy for the new patient facility, and it reflects, I think, good news, and we're very enthusiastic about this. It reflects a lot of hard work, a lot of momentum, a lot of progress. So at this time, what we've been advised is that the most appropriate approach, given our current parameters on the HSH campus, is to move units as they are now from an older building intact with the treatment teams to a new unit in the new patient facility. Focus on the care that we're delivering now on a day-to-day basis, occupy, and then plan subsequently. So in essence, what we're doing is we're moving intact teams and patients over into an environment where there's new technology, and training needs to go to that new technology, how to operationalize that and deliver the care that we've been delivering day to day for quite some time in our current facilities. We've also been advised that the most appropriate approach is not to move all at once and occupy like layers of the layer cake, just do it all at once, to do one floor at a time and have a sequence of about 2 weeks in between. So our matrix of approach is, whenever the date is to move into the third floor, both units on the third floor. 2 weeks later, move into the second floor. 2 weeks later, move into the first floor. And so right now our projections are that around mid-April, if all goes well, we'd move in and occupy the third floor. Late April, the second floor, and then sometime in May, the first floor. And right now we're watching the progress of the remediation that was described. And as soon as that is wrapped up on each floor, we'll move folks in. Okay, and I want to turn it over now to Dr. Heidelberg. If you go to the next slide, please, to talk about, in a sequence of slides, some upgrades to the lower campus that are part of our building the capacity at the Hawaii State Hospital as a whole. Dr.
Okay.
Heidelberg.
Oh, yeah, thanks a lot, Dr. Champion. So this is the lower campus, and in 2017, Joint Commission, our accrediting body, did a survey of the hospital, and gave us several citations, dozens of citations for ligature. So ligature, just for a definition of getting on the same sheet of music, is any object that a patient can tie a rope around or a towel around and hurt themselves with and then try and commit suicide. So they found this, and with the Anti-Ligature project, thanks a lot to the legislature, we got $8.9 million to do an anti-ligature project. So the replacing door closures and door handles, as we've seen in the other slide that Eric presented, that is what we're going to do to the lower campus. And we're going to sequence those in starting in May once the last unit moves in. So then we'll talk about the 2 years. So next slide. So what you see here is starting in summer of 2022, what we'll do is we'll finish unit Foxtrot. That'll take 3 to 6 months to get that unit taken care of. Next slide. And then we'll go in and move into the next unit. So we'll have to do Foxtrot E, H, I, and sequence those in. Next slide. So when E is finished, and so what we'll do is just sequence E back to Foxtrot, and then we'll have to move patients to I. And by the winter of 2023, we hope to have all of those projects finished. Those units will be in a new patient facility. The contractors are ready. As soon as we move out, they'll be ready to do the work. And our lower campus to look more like our upper campus as well. Next slide. And that is just part of the sequencing, and that's how we're going to do the project in a row. Yes.
It occurred to me it would be good to make maybe a couple of comments about the continuum of the campus as we visualize it, where we're heading towards a context for all this remediation that's going on. So with the overall HSH campus, it is Hawaii State Hospital with different buildings. The new patient facility is a building within that overall continuum. And the new patient facility represents a highly secured, structured environment in that continuum. So that includes the upper campus and the lower campus. So within the new patient facility, we're going to have a unit that is handling all new admissions onto the campus. And currently our admission unit is on the lower campus, but we're going to be moving that up into the new patient facility. So that the new patient facility is going to have new admissions, those who are under assessment or need, an acute assessment because of acute issues that have arisen, a unit that is specialized to do acute management for people who need that level of care, and then also as a whole represents in that continuum a facility for the highest security and highest public safety or personal safety or safety to others risk. And at this point, we'll turn it over to Dr. Amy Curtis.
So
For the next slide, please.
get to conclude it here for the committee, Chair, Vice Chair. Thank you very much for having us here. So we just want to mention overall, we are committed to this entire continuum of care. This is mentioning a continuum of care that we're working on in the inpatient perspective, but we're also, as you know, working hard on the outpatient level, diverting those before they need inpatient level of care, working on our crisis care continuum too, and our stabilization beds. And all of this is to work together to ensure those that need care are able to get it in an environment that will help their recovery. So I think at this point, that concludes our presentation, and we are here to answer any questions.
Okay, so what we'll do is we'll move to the next item on the agenda, and then we'll move to Q&A at the end. So, Dags?
Yes. Regarding the timeline?
Yeah, I mean, do you have anything additional to?
No, well, we are, as far as the warranty work, especially the showers, it will be completed in a phase, in accordance with the phase of the move-in. So by mid-April, we should have the first phase for the move-in ready and so forth, second phase. And I think by the end of April, actually, we should be done doing all the corrective work on the showers, which is a key item.
Okay, okay, and then the next item is an update on the recent state hospital escape.
So the recent state hospital escape is under investigation right now. So I won't be able to comment on it.
Is that it?
Yeah. We requested guidance from our Attorney General, and the Attorney General's office is currently investigating that. So they asked us not to comment on that at this time.
Yeah, that's extremely disappointing. When can we expect a report on the investigation?
We'll follow up on that and let you know, Chair.
Well, next time you can inform the joint committees that you will not be able to report on items posted on a public agenda before we publish the agenda. That might be more helpful to the public who's expecting an explanation of what happened with this escape. So I think it's really disappointing that we're not going to have an update at this point when we could have been informed of that prior to publishing this agenda for the briefing. On that note, members' questions? Vice Chair Baker.
I just have one, and maybe you mentioned it and I just didn't catch on to it. What's happening with Greensburg?
So Goonsburg is currently, we currently have patients in Goonsburg. We'll keep it operational until all the patients get moved in and the lower campus remediation is completed.
So what's the plan for that? Are you going to try to update it, upgrade it, keep it available?
Yes, Dr. Curtis, can you?
One of the, we want to make sure that we use it. So there was a measure that was put forward, as you may know, to look at use of Goonsburg. There are several different things that in our continuum of care that could be helped overall. One of those that we've mentioned for individuals is co-occurring substance use and serious mental illness, as well as those with long-term care needs. So we had put in a request to get funds to be able to utilize the building in that way, but in a secure within the locked facility. I believe there is, if I remember correctly, I think there are funds to look at the design element of that. That building definitely needs remediation. You won't be able to continue to use that long-term without remediation occurring. But we believe if we're able to use it for those purposes, there are individuals right now that are staying at an inpatient level psychiatric care really because of these other factors, and there's nowhere else secure that they can go. This would allow the inpatient psychiatric facility, of HSH, of Hawaii State Hospital, to be able to focus on those that need those inpatient level care needs, and then be able to have this other specialized building for those with very specialized needs. So that's what we're looking at being able to do with that, or that's plan that we have.
Well, I'm curious, what is the rate of success, if you will, with getting folks who are able to be discharged from the facility? And then if they are discharged, what's the follow-up plan?
You want to talk about the community, the plan for those that are transitioning. So transitioning is a really important element in any of these continuum of care. Because of that, in fact, in our strategic planning executive group has an operational work group that the whole focus is transitions, because this is such a key element of how individuals do. So one of the things that the transition team works on, for instance, is the recovery plans that individuals have while they're in Hawaii State Hospital before discharge. They work with those that are going to care for them when they come out to be able to work on what does that transition plan, what does the master recovery plan look like, how are we going to transition well, where would be the best next step for those to step down after leaving Hawaii State Hospital. And then in addition to that, we're also on the front end working at if somebody does have a relapse or need to be hospitalized again, what was working well? What was not working well when they were in the community? How do we make sure that there's a longer period of time that they're having successful community tenure and they're building on that as they go back out again? One of the other things that we built, because we identified those that were not doing well when they were transitioning out of HSH, early analysis showed that one of those factors, and probably the main factor that we could find for being readmitted within 6 months to HSH after discharge, was also have a co-occurring meth addiction issue as well. So because of that, we developed the Polycana model, which would look at evidence-based practices that you use for someone who has co-occurring meth, substance use issue, as well as a serious mental illness. It includes contingency management. It includes motivational interviewing. Anyway, it includes multiple therapies and factors that would help those do better at that level. And so we're building that as we go, but that's what we look at. And then we also have teams that come together. They include, for those who are justice involved, forensic coordinators, housing, social workers as well, psychiatrists, and those caring at HSH, to look at those that are getting close to discharge and really discuss together, where are they going to do best? What do we need to help those individuals? So that's something else that we've been building on to help that transition period.
So do you engage the families if they have family with what the planning is, what the outcomes are going to be? Because I would imagine that sometimes family dysfunction adds to the issues that they're having to deal with.
I think we can do more with that. There isn't as many families involved as we would like, but I think Ron can talk a little bit more from dealing, or Dr. Heidelberg.
Yes, Chair. We do engage the families. So we have social workers and we have treatment teams, and families are involved in that. Now that we're off site, we are bringing visitors back in, and they're always included and invited to help out, because the family knows the patients best, and they can really give us a lot of great information on how to rehabilitate the patient. Thank you.
Chair has some questions, and then we'll rotate, but actually this might be for DAGS, Mr. Nishimoto. So, in other projects that the state monitors, before we accept the project over, or, like for example, with streets or other types of things, there's some type of a review or investigation prior to taking back taking control of the property, before we get the keys, so to speak, to make sure that the work is done completely and thoroughly. Was that done on this facility?
Yes, we did do an inspection. We with Hawaii State Hospital staff walked through the facility and did the inspection. Like I said, a lot of these things are warranty work. Some are latent defects that are not always visible or readily visible when you're doing a walkthrough. Yeah, unfortunately, there are some, and like any other project, we have this, and we call on the warranty or the contractor's guarantee to correct those items. So it's yeah, I know this is this project has been brought out into the media, but
Because it was turned over in February of 2021, right?
it was actually accepted in February of 2021,
Okay.
and then we turned it over to the hospital in April of 2021.
Okay. And you turned it over to the hospital knowing that there were defects?
No, well, there may have been some warranty work, but it's once we accept it, we have accepted it from the contractor. It becomes the warranty period starts to kick in. But if there are any problems identified with defects or things that we did not catch during the inspection, we can call back on our design builder to remedy those items.
Okay, so the warranty you mentioned, does that mean the state is paying no additional cost for any of these fixes?
For items that are, that are being warranty, if there are changes because maybe, after you see something built that's not the way we expected it or wanted it, then there will be a change order. But
but a
all
change
other-
order might mean then that the state will foot the bill, but these are errors that were done by the contractor, which maybe shouldn't have been accepted. So is the state going to then be paying for these change orders that,
If it's an error on the contractor, the design builder, then we don't pay.
okay. So the change orders then would be reflecting of the state wanting something changed from what was agreed upon prior?
Yes.
Okay. And so is there any estimations on any additional costs to the state for these errors or delays?
In terms of change order costs.
Or any costs?
But the delays, that part, as far as the occupancy, and I don't have any figure on that. I mean, it's what's there now and what needs to be transferred into the new facility.
I think to some extent a change in administration, having done facility openings at corrections, not just here, but also in New York City, there were certain things that I saw that were definitely issues for patient as well as staff safety. I think what happened, because it was a design build, you look at the plans on paper and you don't visually see what it's going to look like when it's actually built. And then as we're walking through the facility, we did identify things that may have been okay on paper, but they were not acceptable.
But that wasn't
for
caught during the
practice.
checks before February of 2021 prior to
I
accepting it.
Can't speak to that since I
Okay.
wasn't here.
And then one final question to follow up. The timeline mentioned that, or the design build option, right, Ron, was to involve people to develop, right, make a facility that had input. So since the staff is so vital to the success of any type of facility, was HGA and UPW involved with the feedback and providing input in this design from the get-go? And if so, were they continually involved in the process of the opening?
I'm gonna-
Do you want to take this?
Yes, Chair. Thanks for that question. HGA as well as UPW disciplines were involved in discipline. I mean, like RNs, psych tech, psychiatry, OT, RT, the whole entire janitors. Everyone had input into the design. And they did have input into some of the work that's being done now. During the tours, they did look at some things that stood out at them. And we did talk to DAGs about that.
Okay, so as the building was being developed, right, and scheduled to be open, was there discussions and agreements regarding HGA and UPW's training or additional services, hiring that could have been done instead of waiting for the to be done after February of 2021?
I would say yes, we probably could have done those things. One of the things I did identify when I came on board was the fact that they were understaffed for an endeavor like this. When you're opening up a new facility, you're creating an operating plan, you're creating new policies and procedures. Pretty difficult to do that simultaneously while you're running your regular operations, and on top of that, running it with COVID. So we did get additional resources. We were able to contract some folks to help us with this and kind of get going and put everything on track to get it going.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Senator San Buenaventura.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'd like to follow up with what Senator Baker brought up about Gunsberg. My understanding is, hopefully, I'm Chair of Human Services. So one of the things that Dr. Champion had said that I'm concerned with is like 90% of the population in the Hawaii State Hospital are there because they're required to be there by the courts, right? Which to me is super high percentage. And I'd like to be able to expand the use of Hawaii State Hospital for those who are homeless and who are not criminally sentenced. My understanding was that was what Gunsberg, after the transition, was going to be used for. Is there a separate plan? Because it seems to me if they're not criminally sentenced, there doesn't need to be this high security requirement for these homeless people who need to be stabilized or who have even co-occurring diagnoses but are not criminally sentenced. I'm trying to figure out, is there a separate plan for Gunsberg that requires them to be used again for criminally sentenced, or can we start moving towards a more liberal approach to the use of Hawaii State Hospital beyond those who are criminally sentenced?
I can take that if you like. That is what we're working for in those buildings that we determined to be medium or low on that map that you saw, medium or low security. That is the goal, to have those individuals be coming in for civil commitments. We do still have to follow federal and state rules about who is getting care at a hospital. So if somebody doesn't want to receive care, they have to follow the rules of being a danger to themselves and others in the statutes that you have for them to obviously receive care. But that is the entire plan of that. So even that part we were talking about with the long-term care and co-occurring, that doesn't have to be individuals that have to be there because they have, have come through the criminal court cases. There can be other ways too. It's just determining you have it and you have that available, that service available that we don't have. And so those units that are getting rehab, the F and the H and the I and the E, that's hopefully that more of those would be available to those that are civilly committed. The other things we're trying to do is decriminalize, because Hawaii as a state has a high incarceration rate of its population. And that's part of what's leading. That is a main way that individuals are ending up into getting psychiatric care across the country. We all want to change that trajectory and change that. So that's why we're working on the areas like Act 26, which is for those petty nonviolent misdemeanors where someone really could just need that mental illness help or others. And they're coming in through very small offenses. Now they can get care within 7 days, be evaluated immediately, see if they need care, if that's fit, and then the charges are dropped and are able to get that kind of care. So we're working on more of those diversionary, programs as well, because if individuals continue to be incarcerated at a high rate, and that's how they're identified for needing mental illness help and inpatient psychiatric care, and then they're ordered to Hawaii State Hospital, because that number's been going up, the numbers that are ordered to the hospital then.
So I have a really fast question.
Sure,
I'm sorry,
sure.
because we all need to leave here, I think, by 2
Sure,
o'clock.
sorry. Okay.
So, when you had this order of occupancy, where by mid-April, 3rd and 4th floor, is there, when you talk about the order of occupancy, is it going to be like those who are most in need of the high security ones get moved first, or what is the order?
Do you want me to take that? We're following the guidance of the national experts that we use. They suggest with you the first group that comes in, it's a group that well, that's pretty predictable because it's the first group where you're trying out the new building and working with them. So that will be the first group that goes in 3rd and 2nd. However, the first floor is the intake unit, and right now in a current higher acuity unit. So once you get to that first floor, you will be getting to those individuals that have those higher security needs. And then after that's completed, you have the building working, that's when, as Dr. Champion mentioned, you look at different issues related to where people may move. But we're just following the recommendations they have to have a smooth transition into the new building.
Okay, thank you very much.
May I make a quick comment? Really quickly, excellent question about how we shift in the direction of building capacity for civil commitments. There's 2 issues. One is, do you have the facilities to handle the volume that's coming in? Other states that have reduced their percentage have built other facilities. So the good news is we're doing the same to build our capacity. The second is lower the volume of people coming in that criminal justice pathway so it doesn't fill what you got. And that's what Dr. Curtis is talking about in terms of diversion programs, alternative ways to handle the issue of fitness or competency for low-level charges, et cetera. So that's the decriminalization of mental illness.
We keep working on that various levels, but thank you very much.
Yes, I do. I have a question about hospital staffing. What is the turnover rate for those working in the hospitals?
Yeah, I don't know right off the top of my head the rate. I know that we do have 117 openings at this point, and 66 of them are in recruitment.
The reason why I asked this is because I feel like there really is no follow-up when someone is released from the hospital. So what is the average stay of an individual, of a patient in the Hawaii State Hospital?
Oh, sorry, I misunderstood. I thought you said turnover rate of staff.
I'm asking about that too.
Staff. Oh, okay.
So
All right.
We do have follow-up. That's what I mentioned with the transition planning, and everyone does have a case manager that leaves. And they do have care. They, like, as I mentioned, they actually work with them before they're even discharged with Hawaii State Hospital. So there is quite a transition plan. So I'm not sure, but I can answer any of the questions that we answered before. We look for helping them with case management, with housing, with where they're going to go. In fact, many of the court orders are stated such that you must have that before you're even allowed to be discharged. So there is quite a bit of work with transition and helping those that have been discharged from the Hawaii State Hospital. And as I mentioned, looking at the analysis, the primary reason they would be readmitted relatively quickly is that those with the co-occurring conditions. And that's why we then designed those facilities to help those individuals that are having that.
So each individual released from the hospital will have an outreach worker with them.
They will
Like
have a
following
case
the
manager
casework.
assigned.
Okay.
Yes, they will have a case manager that's assigned. They, you know, if they have different insurance, it may look different than if they don't or where they are, but yes, they're assigned to a case manager. They also have a provider if they need medication as well. They have a treatment team that's working with them. And then they also have the forensic coordination aspect of it to help them, to help with staying, in the community in a successful way.
Okay, so how many cases does each case manager usually have?
You can't have more than 30. That's a health insurance kind of following Medicaid rule. So each case manager cannot have more than 30 under that MedQuest.
That's a lot. No further questions.
Yeah.
Rep, I just wanted to add, healthcare workers, not just us at the hospital. There's just a lack of enough. And so, our turnover is probably similar to what Queens and HPH is experiencing. We are working right now with the John A. Burns School of Medicine to get psychiatrists and to try to attract some of the young docs to come and work with us. But healthcare is much broader than that.
Thank you.
Okay, I have a question for Mr. Nishimoto. Before receiving keys from the contractor, you said that you went through a pretty standard DAGS review of the building, to ensure that the building was ready to be received. And so as a part of that review, what was the collaboration that took place between DAGS and the Department of Health, Adult Mental Health Division?
Sorry, I personally wasn't present at those inspections, but typically, and they can verify or not, a walkthrough is made with the user, the hospital, as well as the designers and the contractor and our inspectors.
Okay,
They
and so,
identify any deficiencies or things that do not appear correct.
okay, and so Dr. Champion or Ron or Amy, Marion, I know you weren't there yet, but did you folks conduct that pre-inspection of the facility before taking possession of the building?
Yes, Senator, we did have, and the DAGs take possession of the building and hand it off to us. But yes, that was done.
So the thing that does not make sense to me from this presentation is the items that were shown in the presentation as the reasons for the 1-year delay between taking possession of the building and your planned opening, actually, it's going to be 15 months. The only thing in the presentation that I saw that you presented were that 4 out of 80 showers in the building weren't to standard. And then there are some door handles and hinges that need to be replaced. What are the other reasons why the building has not been opened yet?
But I mentioned 3 or 4 showers do not drain properly towards the drain. There are a lot of other showers that did receive ponding due to maybe just not enough slope on the floor. So the contractor is correcting.
So how many of the showers need to be replaced?
Brad, do you have that number? I'm not. You have that number of how many showers that they're correcting? How many showers are being corrected?
50 out of 85 showers are not to code.
Yeah, well, it's not, they're not, they do meet code. It's not easy to achieve with the ADA maximum slope requirements. And
So if the showers don't meet ADA requirements, then they're not to code.
no, they meet ADA, but because of meeting ADA, it makes it very difficult to drain quick enough or to avoid those localized ponding, or sometimes you hear it as bird bats on roofs. But I just need to point out that that's not what is necessarily holding up. It is one item that needs to be done in order to open the facility. So
They meet code, but they're not standard.
Well, we want them to work better. And so we rejected them. So that's not a change order, that's work under the warranty.
So again, but the building's been empty for 15 months because 50 of the 80 showers should have been constructed in a standard manner. Is that fair to say? I mean, 50 and the building has been closed for 15 months as a result of this. I don't understand at what point your administration or like I said earlier, I mean, you guys are all the administration, and we're the legislative branch. Doesn't matter to me which department is responsible, but for 15 months, we've had 50 broken showers and then the building stays closed as a result.
They're not broken. They're just being corrected to meet the expectations to ensure safety.
Okay, they're not broken, but they don't work.
I would say there are 3 or 4 that absolutely don't work. The rest, there is a, with ponding of the water, there is a safety concern for slippage of being the floor is wet. That's within the shower room space. So, it will get
So
wet.
Dr. Champion, how were you folks able to meet certification if there are safety issues in 50 of the 80 showers?
Thank you. I'm going to defer to Dr. Heidelberg on certification and accreditation.
I mean, you do need to be accredited by the Joint Commission, right, in order to open?
Yes, Senator. But Joint Commission will do a survey once we're open. Once the patients come in, they'll survey the facility at that point. And that's what we need to get it ready, because of the ponding could cause issues. And it's better for us to take the time to get it right than move in and get it wrong and lose certification of that building.
I'm sorry that we've been at this for a year and we've had multiple meetings, but it's not in the best interest of the public that we take this time. I don't understand why prior to receiving keys from the contractor, it wasn't established at some point that we had 50 of the 80 showers not sufficiently safe to meet Joint Commission accreditation standards to compel you guys to delay receiving receipt of the building. Who was supposed to have made the call before we took the keys that all of these deficiencies were present in the building?
Well, I think after the building was turned over, it became evident that some of these showers, the ones especially that did not drain towards the drain, it became evident that something needed to be corrected. It went a step further and we looked at other areas closer, and that led to more showers being corrected. So these things came up. They were not visible at the time I mean, I guess it could have been if we turned on the showers and let it run for a long time. It's just how the sequence of events, I don't think at the time of inspection, the showers were turned on for a prolonged period. The other thing that I guess because of operations, there are shower curtains that prevent the water from shooting straight out. But in the course of the operations part of it coming on, he says the patients will likely not close the shower curtain, and therefore the area that is supposed to be dry will get wet. So now to address that, we're trying to make sure that those areas drain as fast as possible. So it's because of when you shake down a facility, the key to that is getting it operated. And I think that's why the Joint Commission, they don't give you accreditation until you occupy. Until you occupy, identify any weaknesses or things that need to improve, they will identify it, and the hospital will have to make some adjustments. It's the same thing, actually. Unfortunately, I've been here too long with the lower campus hospital. We finished that project in 1992. They occupied the hospital, and then the Joint Commission came after some period of operation. I'm not sure if it's a year's period of operation, to identify whether it's operational or the physical plant that needs to be either upgraded or changed. A lot of issues can be handled operationally, and some requires physical changes. And that's what happened in 1993 or so, around there.
So why has it taken it 15 months to fix the showers?
Well,
It didn't take 15 months. I don't think that we identified it for DAGs until maybe a few months ago.
it was a little before that, but they identified it and we had to address it. Tell the contractor they wanted to do their own assessment, and we made double sure what we're claiming is true, and then gave them the directive about 2 months ago, I think. Was it 3 months? Maybe time flies. 3 months ago to make the correction. 2 months. 2 months. Yeah.
So what was it? The door handles then? If you found out 3 months ago that you had the shower problem, then what was holding up the opening of the facility the prior 9 months?
I would have to say that we need to take responsibility for that over at DOH. As I indicated to you before, there are a number of things that we should have started while the building was still being built, like an operating plan, start drafting out some policies and procedures. And we didn't. To the staff's credit, they did take care of COVID. They kept COVID out of the facility, which was a huge effort.
You mean the
And-
campus? Because there was no
The
COVID in the
campus.
empty building.
No, the campus.
Okay.
But I mean, these
Which
are
you
the
guys
folks
did do
that
really
also
well
had to
at.
take care of the daily operations of the hospital. And on top of that, they're trying to operationalize and think through exactly how this new facility is going to be built and how it will operate and who is going to do what at each one of the different positions. So kind of hard to do that when you keep dealing with pandemic staff, or you have staff shortages because staff get COVID. And we were finally able to resource them with some additional help. And I think that really helped push things along.
Okay, members, other questions?
I do.
Thank you, Chair. Dr. Champion, your team has a really heavy burden, responsibility. One of the takeaways the senator just mentioned is really spot on. And my question was a supply and demand question. I was shocked to hear that 90% of your patients are criminal records. Because when we have PSD, the public safety brief for us, they say, hey, 80% of our prisoners in the prison have mental health issues. So if you put the prisons together with the mental health, I mean, my God, look what you've got as a responsibility. So in terms of this hospital, how much is it going to satisfy the demand that's out there? And have you got any metrics about what percentage of the population that needs you is actually getting services?
It's a very good question, a very astute question. In my experience over the last decades working as a forensic psychiatrist, this challenge that we have as a society and the culture all around the country, things are very intertwined. Since the 60s, moving to the 70s and deinstitutionalization, we saw from the state hospitals, more and more folks with serious mental illness were in the community. And what we saw as beds went down, the number of people with serious mental illness in jails and prisons went up. And so the needs for providing good psychiatric and mental health care in correctional settings skyrocketed at the same time that you had individuals who are coming in contact with the criminal justice system. And instead of getting convicted and sentenced and staying in jails and prisons, they were actually going into the existing beds that were left in the state hospital system. Those individuals, though, are not convicted as a whole. Those individuals are found unfit to proceed or not competent to stand trial and needing to become competent or fit to proceed and sent to a state hospital so that their fitness can be restored and they can go through the adjudication process, or a defense of insanity will be argued in front of the court, and somebody may be found not guilty for a reason of insanity. So those individuals are not sentenced, but they occupy beds in the state hospital. And our state, as well as Missouri, is around 100%. Maryland's around 89%. California is around 75% of individuals in the state hospital system having a forensic status or a criminal justice status, being ordered to the hospital by the criminal courts to get those needs addressed.
So how many hospitals you need to meet the needs?
Well,
I know
so this is an evolving field, sir. And what I mean by that is more and more around the country, we all are getting it, that there needs to be front-end efforts to divert people out of that criminal justice pathway, get them into crisis treatment, get them stabilized before they even come in contact.
So
with
you
law
do
enforcement.
outreach, extensive outreach in the prisons? You're doing that now?
So there's a number of things, and we can provide additional information to you about what is called the Sequential Intercept model, which is laying out the different points where an individual with serious mental illness can come in contact with the criminal justice system, from the crisis setting on the front end to being in prisons and jails, and then re-entering the community. And there needs to be services bolstered at each point, at each intercept, to be able to get people connected to treatment. And so I'm not trying to give you a general answer to your very good question. What I'm saying is that in our field as it evolves, we're all trying to figure out what that sweet spot number is for number of beds in a hospital setting, in a state hospital setting, for people who need to be civilly committed, but also a smaller number that need to be available for individuals who are justice involved and need that specialized kind of services. Right now in our state, for many years, we've been almost at 100% of people in Hawaii State Hospital coming from the criminal courts. We're moving in the other direction. opening this new facility is part of that. But it's not in isolation. It's efforts to bolster people's connection to treatment at all different points along the
The
way.
community is still trying to get a handle on what happened outside the Kapolei courthouse with the bludgeoning of that young lady who was homeless and the other inmate who was released, et cetera. But that's another issue. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Senator Moriwaki.
Yes, the concern is that the 15 months and it's water under the bridge at this point, but whether it's design error or whether it's your change orders or whether it's a contractor error, and those should be corrected quickly. And I don't know why it's taken that long and why that wasn't seen when before DAGS was left the scene, that those kinds of corrections should be made. But now if you're actually opening up, that's the news in April. I think it was over a year ago, we saw it opening up. That I'd like to know what kinds of numbers and who. You say you collaborate with the prisons or judiciary on the sequential model. What kind of waiting list do you have? How many people are going into the state hospital? How many people are you going to house in the stabilization beds on the state hospital grounds? And I'd like to know the numbers and when, some kind of timeline.
I can make one comment and then perhaps Dr. Curtis follow up. One of the very concerning trends that we see around the country are individuals who need to come into the state hospital or are waiting in prisons or jails for a bed. If somebody is found unfit or not competent to stand trial, waiting in jails and prisons before they can come in. And you'll see this in the news. There's active litigation all around the country about this. We have a very different scenario here.
I'm just wondering what are your numbers? I don't want the country,
Yes.
What
Yes, ma'am.
are you doing to house X number of people into the state hospital if you're opening up in April?
Yes.
It's April.
And if
This
I could
month.
yes, ma'am. If I could just close that piece out about waiting lists and then hand over to Dr. Curtis. We don't have a waiting list here in Hawaii. And the reason is there's a federal court injunction that says that individuals who are found incompetent or unfit or acquitting commit, not guilty by reason of insanity, need to get into the state hospital within 48, 72 hours. The challenge is we don't have a wait list, but they must come. They don't wait, they come and fill up the beds that we do have. Dr. Curtis.
Yeah, so the facility itself has 144 beds. So the new patient facility has 144 beds. We're continuing to have the number of beds that we have in the lower campus. However, as Dr. Heidelberg mentioned, one after another, they're going to have to get that anti-ligature work. The questions I think were raised today that I think are important questions about Goonsburg. That's very important what it will be long-term, because that could be 80 to 90 potential additional beds. It does need rehabilitation long-term to be used. It's definitely not fitting with JCAHO standards long-term for anti-ligature at this point. So with that, the goal
Is the hospital open, the doors are open and you accept patients? So what kind of numbers can you take?
Yeah,
in
so
April?
right now, when there's civil commitments or requests, we see what is there with what we're already getting, that exactly like Dr. Champion said. If somebody says there's a need for someone to come in that is unfit or needs to be seen for other reasons from the civil court or from the criminal court orders, they must come in. And then you see what space you have after that for the civil commitment. So the biggest change is going to be when this anti-ligature work is done, because then we will be able to utilize all of the buildings at once, the 144 beds.
So how
plus
many
the
beds are now available if you open? When are you open? When are you open? What day are you open?
Well, there's the other parts in that, with the final part to move in is making sure that all the staff are trained in a new building technology. It's got a lot of technology. If you've gone and seen a tour, it's amazing what it'll be able to do, but you definitely have to be trained in that technology. So we've just got to finish the training and finish these last items that need to be done, and then make sure that
So
completes.
tell me the timeline from the doors are open and we have staff that are trained and ready to serve you.
mid-April is what we're looking at right now. One of the draft proposed dates is April 13th. That's proposed if everything goes well. So that's our draft proposed date.
And you can accept up to 144 people on that day.
No, that will only move in floor 3 from
And how many is
existing
that?
floors. So that will only move. So each unit itself has 24 beds on, and there's 2 units on each floor. So you'll be moving in 48 that day, then you'll moving in 48 2 weeks later into the next
So you're
floor, and
phasing
then
in.
48. Yeah. And with each of those are the units are going over. So that's why the decision making of what happened there, the first 2 floors are going in from Gunsberg and what's currently at Gunsberg. So I think it's a very important decision, long-term, what's going to happen with the Gunsberg building and how we're able to use it.
So what's happening with the stabilization beds?
The stabilization beds will have up to at least 16, if not up to 20 units there at a COLU, which is on HSH grounds. We also currently have an
Wait,
additional.
are they available now or are they going?
Oh, they're being used
They're
now.
being used
And
now.
that can be used by anyone in the community. There is anyone that needs that level case management based stabilization. They call the CARES crisis line. There's no requirement in the way of insurance, status, civil,
Anybody
that's
can
you
be
need
dropped
it.
off.
And there's a space, yeah, they can go there. So a COLU, and we also have a Waikiki Beachside location right now, which has 27 beds as well, through a partnership with the city and county. We also have a request for proposal out right now for additional providers to put in proposals to have additional stabilization sites throughout the state. We have some on the Big Island and we're adding them in Maui. We'd like to have them in all counties, which will help individuals stay where they are in place and get that help and not.
So you
you
don't
know,
have
have to be
neighbor
flown.
islands right now.
There's right now, currently there's one facility on the Big Island. This does not count our already existing licensed crisis residential shelters, which include crisis care at a higher level. The nursing staff are always there. That has been existing on the Big Island, in Oahu, and in Maui. So now we're adding these case management based stabilization beds. And we have already one that's going in Maui. We have them on the Big Island. We have them here in Oahu. We're hoping to add them to all of the counties and again, have that request for proposal that's out right now. I will say, one of the things that we mentioned, that workforce development piece is so key. I don't think it can be understated or overstated, sorry, how important it is that we have staff that will be able to staff all of this. We are working really hard in trying to expand services, hitting a time when across the country, behavioral health personnel are very difficult to find. And it's very competitive to be able
And
to
so
find
Dr.
them.
Curtis, sorry to interrupt, but we have
Yeah,
just 5
sorry.
minutes left. Your answers here sort of go back to address Representative Ward's question, which is related to Dr. Champion mentioning that the strategy is to help people with behavioral health issues before they commit crimes,
Yeah.
so that they are not mandated to stay at your psychiatric facility. They can come in at a lower level of acuity at a different part of the campus or in services that you have elsewhere in the community or on the neighbor islands.
Yes, true. And then also they can get help in as long as they need it and be able to go on if they're able to be in the community after with Act 26.
So in terms of workforce, are you working with the community colleges? Are you working with UH Manoa or any place else to try to make sure that people are recruited and graduated with whatever skills they need?
I'm going to mention just a couple, and then Dr. Heidelberg has a really important one as well. Yes, we are working with JABSOM. We're also have a workforce development internship program that we have actually through one of our federal grants for social work students, but we're going to add that with psychology students as well in the upcoming years. We're also having discussions about clinical psychologist internships, AMHD, being able to do that, the child and adolescent mental health division, doing it with that division as well. And then Dr. Heidelberg can also mention another one.
Okay, yes, thanks a lot. Great question. Department of Health and Hawaii State Hospital did team up with Windward Community College. We have a psychiatric technician course going on right now as we speak. And we're training pre-psychology students. And they can earn up to 30 credits at Windward Community College and with the partnership of Hawaii State Hospital, and take that 30 credits and go to Kapiolani and get a nursing degree, 2-year nursing degree or any other degree. So it is a pre-psychology course, and we are teaching our students how to do conflict management and how to deal with psychiatric patients, and that can go out into the community as well.
What
And one
about
of
on the neighbor islands?
Neighbor islands, we hadn't expanded yet, but Dr. Curtis probably can talk a little bit more about that.
We're expanding right now, and I forgot to mention also with the peer specialists and forensic peer specialists, and we have trained those on the neighbor islands as well. And we're looking to train more. So one of the things that we were able to do, again, with a federal grant was expand the peer specialist program with a further specialization in forensic peer specialists. We're working with the courts right now to look at how they can be utilized there. We're discussing how they could be utilized to help with PSD with a variety of different providers, also within the Department of Health. So we're looking at how they can be reimbursed. And again, could be an important part of recovery for those individuals to be able to utilize as well. And in fact, I believe in the facility, new patient facility, they'll have some classrooms so that those individuals that are in the new patient facility or in Hawaii State Hospital will be able to potentially be looking at working on college credits while they're in there as well. Or Dr. Heidelberg, do you want to discuss that?
Yeah, so we are teaming up with Windward Community College to have our patients be able to get a college credits and all of that, and build their skills. And that's the next phase of our building, that collaborative work.
I have a real just short question. And if this facility was open sometime earlier last year, would this have prevented the escape?
This facility was open some last
Earlier
year.
last year, or on schedule, would we still have the escape of the patient?
Oh, I'm not the one to answer that one, but maybe Ryan.
Was this patient would not be in that new facility?
I think it's hard to say. I don't know if he required that level of security, so hard to say if he would have been placed in the new patient facility or at the lower campus.
And you guys done remediations at the current facility to prevent what he did?
Yes, Senator, we have the remediation, and we are looking at all our policy and procedures again about this patient. I really can't say much, but probably would not have been in that.
Would not have happened if the facility was open.
Well, it probably would not have qualified for that level.
So seeing as how it was on the agenda, the committees would appreciate it if we could have a copy of the report once the review of the escape is completed by the Attorney General's office and the department. And on that note, we've come to the end of the briefing. I do want to mention really quickly, it's really encouraging that we now have a time certain for the opening of the building mid-April, which is really nice to hear and to be able to report to the community. And then you mentioned very briefly, I think Dr. Champion, the state hospital did really exceptional work on COVID. There was no major cluster during any of the initial 2 surges. I believe the only real cluster you had was during Omicron after the danger had really subsided. And so, I did want to take this moment to commend your leadership on that, because we had really terrible outbreaks in the jails, and that just did not happen at the state hospital. So I appreciate that. And we look forward to working with you further to make sure that this facility is fully open as soon as possible. Thank you very much. We're
Thank
adjourned.
you.